it's me, Olivia Peck, and today I wanted to talk about accents. In my experience, I live in the Southeast. I live in Louisiana, and believe it or not, there are tons of Southern Louisiana accents. That's not including even Northern Louisiana. In the South, I'm sure you know, there are tons of different Southern accents, and I can now tell the difference between Texas and Louisiana versus Mississippi, and they're just slight differences, but when you hear them right next to each other, you can kind of tell. But I'm from Michigan, so I grew up with the Michigan accent, and I have students who are from New Jersey, New York, Sweden. Well, that's been an interesting one, and kind of all over the place. And I'm noticing kind of the pros and cons for all these accents. And I like to say there's sort of a sliding scale between a British accent and a twang. And they're kind of opposites, but you can have both actually. I would say like an Australian accent is kind of a mix of both because you've got the tall vowels, but you've also got the little bit of nasal coming in there, and that's not the best Australian accent, but you could hear, there's a twang just like you would hear in a Texas accent. Depending on where you're from, your accent can help or hurt your singing voice. A lot of times in choral music, they'll really push singing in a British accent because those long vowels, oh, yes, tally-ho, that's exactly what you want to do in a choral setting. And that's great, and that can actually help you do something which is really important in singing that you want to do almost all the time, which is lift your soft palate, which is back where your uvula is hanging. And when you talk in a British accent, it automatically lifts up a little bit and makes your consonants a little bit crisper, a little bit more on the tip of your tongue, as opposed to your American accent where your whole jaw is involved and your tongue is more involved in creating words. We're really wordy over here, okay? Which brings me to my next point. If you're from the North, if you're from Michigan, Wisconsin, you might have a little bit of a hard time opening your mouth, even not just Michigan and Wisconsin, but we don't really open our mouth that much up there. We're kind of tight-lipped. So you might have a little bit of jaw tension, and that's sort of one of the problems I see with people from up north, and that was a common issue even when I was a kid. So the benefits of having a northern accent, I don't know. Your voice might move up and down a lot because, oh, don't you know? But I don't know what benefits I had from being because you have the American accent, which isn't good for singing. It's very tongue involvement, which is not great. And it's very much on your vocal fry, very nasally. Nasal can be good, if you're from New Jersey and you got a lot of nasal in your voice, that can be very good because you do need that nasal quality to have resonance in your voice. You do need a little of it, but if you go overboard with it, then, now, some of these things can turn you on to things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of because maybe you're from a northern place. People with southern accents can have nasally voices too, I'm not saying that, but if you're from New Jersey, let's say, and yeah, you might have some nasal, but you're not quite sure, try some exercises to work on your nasal stuff, and you might have some like undetected habits. You can try plugging your nose and singing, and I have a very nasally voice from being from the North, and I have to kind of unhook that when I sing. I have to get rid of the nasal. I have to really think about it even still, and I've been singing for a long time. Benefits of having a southern accent, especially those Texas people. They've got a twang, man. And the twang is really good for your high register, your middle register. Oh, that's what it is. It's all that. A little bit of nasal, but it's really good for your vowels. It keeps everything light and up here, and that's really good. But you gotta balance it between having twang and having a lifted soft palate, and sometimes you can kind of battle for that. So that's usually the issue you run into. And sometimes when you have a southern accent, it can make your words too wordy. If that's the case, if you're from the South and you have a thick accent, try singing in a British accent, because the British, they're a little bit lazier with that. They don't even say that ahs really. So, and in the South, people say their R's, and R's are horrible for singing. You don't want to sing R. You want to say ah when you sing R's. Long story short, if you are having trouble with your resonance, if you're having trouble with that ping, if you're having trouble being precise, if you feel like your voice is too airy, whatever, try twang, try singing in a southern accent. But if you are having the opposite problem, you feel like you're pushing too much, you feel like you have too much tension, if you feel like your voice is really nasally, if you feel flat, then try singing in a British accent. I would say the benefits to singing in a British accent outweigh the negatives, but if there were a negative side to doing it too much, it would be opening your throat too much and overdoing the vowels like you do in choir. I find that people who come from a classical singing background or choral background, they tend to oversing and overdo it. If you do too big of a vowel, like oh, that can also be too much. So you gotta balance it out between that like small poppy sound, yeah, 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 and yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, you have to meet it in the middle a little bit. Does that make any sense? So I'm gonna do, I guess, an example, and I will do extremes so you can see what I'm talking about. If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys, okay? Here is singing it with a twang, a southern twang. Some people live, okay. Some people live for the fortune. Some people live just for the fame. Some people live for the power, yeah. Some people live just to play the game. You can hear that nasal. Some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if I ain't got you, baby. Here's the British version. English, whatever. Some people live for the fortune. Some people live just for the fame. Some people live for the power, yeah. Some people live just to play the game. Some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if I ain't got you, baby. So if you're gonna mix the two, some people live for the fortune. Some people live just for the fame. Some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if I ain't got you, baby. Hold that out. The European accents are really good for singing because everything's right here. Ho 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 ho. They've got the lifted soft palate, everything's. if you're American, I'm sorry, you're gonna have some issues. Not saying that if you're British you won't, because look at Adele, she's an amazing, amazing singer, but she pushes sometimes and she got nodes or whatever, so your accent can just really change your sound and can help or hurt you. And I would say if you have an accent at all, and most of us, everyone does, investigate what that really means for your singing voice. And it doesn't mean you have to change your voice if you have an accent, but it might mean that you want to readjust some things when you're singing as opposed to when you're talking. I don't talk the exact same way I sing. My singing voice has over the years influenced my talking voice. I talk less on my vocal fry. I'm more airy when I talk than I used to be. I talk less than I used to just because I'm more conscious of conserving my voice. I still talk a ton. I mean, listen to this. I'm 12 minutes in. I'm gonna have to cut this down. As long as you're aware of these things, you can adjust. An accent is a huge part of singing. Another huge thing that accents contribute to is the way you speak. The way we speak is word, 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 breathe as you go, choppy, choppy, choppy. But the way you sing is your breath is supporting a whole phrase and you connect everything and you don't breathe until you have to. You plan your breathing, whereas when you're talking you don't. Breathing is a huge part of it, and adjusting your breathing for when you're singing as well. There's a lot to it. It's best if you have a singing coach, obviously, but you can get pretty far with YouTube and learning on your own. So hope that helps, and have a great rest of your day.